Welcome back, everyone. Today we will be reading book 23. So let's get into it. Book 23. How Odysseus Found His Wife Again. Away went the old woman with her news that the master was in the house. She climbed the stairs, chuckling to herself. Her knees trotted along, her feet tumbled over each other. She leant down over her mistress and said, "Wake up, dear love. Wake up, Penelope. Come and see with thy own eyes what thou's prayed for many a long day. The master has come. He's in the house, better late than never. And he's killed the whole lot, come marry me quicks, who have made themselves a nuisance and eaten thy victuals and plagued thy boy." Penelope was too cautious to believe this. She replied, "Nanny dear, the gods have made you mad. They can make the wisest of men foolish, and they can give good sense to the weakest mind. They have upset even you, and you are generally sound enough. Why do you mock me? I have trouble as it is, and here you come to tell me this crazy tale and wake me out of a lovely sleep when my poor eyes were fast closed. I have not had such a sleep since Odysseus went on his voyage to Ilion, the accursed, which I cannot endure to name. Go away, do, and get back to your room. If any of my other women had waked me up and told me this tale, I should have sent her off in disgrace, but your age shall protect you." The old woman answered, "I don't mock thee, my love. 'Tis the truth. The master has come. He's in the house, as I say, that stranger man, the one they all sneered at in hall. Telemachus knew that he was here, so it turned out. But he's a prudent one, hid his father's notions, punished the men who were above themselves, make 'em pay for their violence. That was his mind." Now glad was Penelope. She sprang out of bed and flung her arms round the old woman's neck. The tears ran down her cheeks, and her words were plain enough now. "Tell me, Nanny dear, tell me truly. If he is really come home, as you say, how did he get his hands on those shameless men alone by himself, and they in a crowd together as they always were?" The old woman replied, "I saw not, and I asked not. Only I heard a noise while they were being killed. We got all as far away as we could, and sat in the corners, and kept the doors locked, scared out of our wits till thy son called me out of the room. His father wanted me, says he. Then I found the master standing in the middle of the corpses. They were all around him, covering the solid ground in heaps. It would have warmed thy heart to see it. Now they're all packaged together by the courtyard gates, and he's fuming. He's fuming the hall with sulphur and a great big fire blazing. But he sent me to tell thee, come now, enter into your heart's delight, and be happy together after all your troubles. Now at last the prayer is answered that was prayed so long. He is alive. He has come himself to his own hearth. He has found thee also and his son in the house, and he has taken vengeance in his own house on all the men who did him wrong." Penelope said again, "Nanny dear, don't boast too soon with all that gloating and chuckling. You know how glad we should all be to see him in this house, especially myself and my son. But there is no truth in your story. No, no. It is one of the immortal gods who killed these proud men. He must have been shocked by their heart-breaking violence and evil doings, for they respected no man on earth that ever met them, good or bad, and therefore they have been punished for their recklessness. But Odysseus has lost his hope of return far away from this land. He is lost himself." The old nurse answered, "My dear love, what a screed to let out o' thy pretty lips. Here's thy man in the house by the hearthstone, and that'll have it he'll never come back home. But thy mind was ever unbelievin'. Look now, I'll give thee a plain manifest sign. The wound that the boar gave him with his tusk, I felt it in the washin', and wanted to tell thee, but eclipse me over the mouth, and won't let me utter a word. Aye, he's a clever one, a deep mind, surely has. Come along, I'll lay my life on it. If I deceive thee, burn me alive, and welcome. Penelope, still doubtful, replied, Nanny dear, it is hard to understand the counsels of the immortal gods, even if you are a very wise woman. However, let us go to my son. I should like to see the men who plagued me, and the man who slew them. Saying this, she went down the stairs with a heart full of perplexity. Should she keep aloof and question her husband? Should she go to his side and cover head and hands with her knees, with her kisses? She passed over the great doorstone into the hall and seated herself opposite to Odysseus by the wall on one side of the bright fire. He was sitting against a pillar looking down and wondering whether his brave wife would speak to him when she saw him. But she sat silent a long time as if struck dumb. Again and again she turned her eager eyes and looked hard at his face. But then again, she could not know him in those dirty rags. At last, Telemachus burst out impatiently. My mother, a devil of a mother you are with your hard heart. Why do you keep all that way from father? Why won't you sit beside him and ask some questions or say something? I'm sure no other woman could be so cold and keep her husband at a distance. Now he has come home after 20 years and all those terrible dangers. But your heart was always harder than flint. Penelope, still doubtful, answered, My boy, my heart is numbed. I cannot speak to him or ask questions or look into his face. If he is indeed Odysseus and this is his house, we shall know each other well enough. There are secrets that we two know, and no one else. Odysseus smiled at this. He answered at once simply and plainly, Leave your mother alone, Telemachus, and let her test me. She will soon know me better. Now I am ragged and dirty. She looks down on me and thinks I am not the man. But we have to consider what is best to do next. If you take the life of one man in the community, and he has a number of friends to avenge him afterwards, you must leave your country to escape his kinsmen. But we have destroyed the bulwark of the city, the finest lads in Ithaca. Consider that, if you please. Telemachus said with due respect, You see to that, dear father. You have your plans ready for everything, as all the world declares, and no man living could challenge you in that. Odysseus was quite ready, and replied, Very well. I will say what I think best. First, wash from head to foot, and put on clean clothes, and tell the household women to dress. Let the minstrel take his harp and strike up a cheerful dance, so that the neighbors and those in the street outside may hear it and think there is a wedding. No rumor must go abroad that these men are killed until we can get out to the farms and the forests. After that, we will consider any plan that the Olympian may put into our minds. They set about this at once. They bathed and dressed, and the women decked themselves out. The minstrel took up his harp and put them in the mood for merry dance and song. The great hall echoed to the dancing feet of women and men, and those passing by in the street said one to another, Ha! Someone has married the much-wooed lady. She's a hard one. She didn't break her heart for the husband of her youth. She might have looked after the house till he came back. They little knew what had happened. Within that house, Eurynome bathed Odysseus and rubbed him down and gave him good clothes. Then he seemed another man, taller and stronger than before, and splendid from head to foot by grace of Athena. his head covered with a thick, curly crop, like the thick, clustering petals of the hyacinth. He was a noble and brilliant figure. You might think of some perfect work of art made by one who is inspired by the divine arts. Hephaestus and Pallas Athena, brilliant with gold over silver. He came out of the bathroom looking more like a god than a man, and returned to his former seat, facing his wife. Then he said to her, "Strange woman, the inscrutable will of God has made your heart unfleeting, beyond mortal women. No other wife could endure to keep her husband at a distance when he has just returned after 20 years of dreadful perils. Very well. Come, Nanny. Lay me a bed, and I will sleep alone. She has a heart of steel, it is clear." His clever wife replied, "Strange man, I am not proud or contemptuous or offended. But I know what manner of man you were when you sailed away from Ithaca. Come, Euryclea, make the bed outside the room which he built himself. Put the fine bedstead outside, and lay out the rugs and blankets and fleeces." This was a little trap for her husband. He burst into a rage. "Wife, that has cut me to the heart. Who has moved my bed? That would be a difficult job for the best workman unless God himself should come down and move it. It would be easy for God, but no man could easily prise it up, not the strongest man living. There is a great secret in that bed. I made it myself, and no one else touched it. There was a strong young olive tree in full leaf growing in an enclosure, the trunk as thick as a pillar. Round this I built our bridal chamber. I did the whole thing myself, laid the stones and built a good roof over it, jointed the doors and fitted them in their places. After that I cut off the branches and trimmed the trunk from the root up, smoothed it carefully with the adze, and made it straight to the line. This tree I made the bedpost. That was the beginning of my bed. I bored holes through it, and filled the other posts about, and inlaid the framework with gold and silver and ivory, and I ran through it leather straps colored purple. Now I have told you my secret, and I don't know if it is still there, wife, or if someone has cut the olive at the root and moved my bed." She was conquered. She could hold out no longer when Odysseus told the secret she knew so well. She burst into tears and ran straight to him, throwing her arms about his neck. She kissed his head and cried, "Don't be cross with me, my husband. You were always a most understanding man. The gods brought affliction upon us because they grudged us the joy of being young and growing old together. Don't be angry. Don't be hurt because I did not take you in my arms as soon as I saw you. My heart has been frozen all this time with a fear that someone would come and deceive me with a false tale. There were so many impostors. But now you have told me the secret of our bed. That settles it. No one else has seen it. Only you and I, and my maid, Actrius, the one my father gave me when I came to you, who used to keep the door of our room. You have convinced your hard-hearted wife." Odysseus was even more deeply moved, and his tears ran as he held her in his arms. The wife of his heart, so faithful and so wise, she felt like a shipwrecked mariner when the stout ship has been driven before the storm and smashed by the heavy waves, but a few have escaped by swimming. How glad they are to see land at last, to get out of the water and stand upon solid ground, all caked with brine. So glad was Penelope to see her husband at last. She held her white arms close round his neck and could not let him go. Dawn would have risen upon their tears of joy, but Athena had a thought for them. She held the night in its course and made it long. She kept dawn on her golden throne at the end of the ocean, so that she could not yoke up her swift pair, Flasher and Falmer, the colts who bring dawn with her light to mortal men. At last Odysseus said to his wife, "Dear wife, we have not yet reached the end of our labors. There still remains a task which I cannot measure, difficult and dangerous, but I must go through to the end. The soul of Tiresias, the prophet, told me, on the day when I went to the house of Hades and asked his advice for our homeward voyage, but come to our bed, my wife, that we may have the delight of sleeping side by side." Penelope replied, "The bed is there for you whenever you please, now that God has brought you back to our home and your native land. But since you have thought of it, tell me about this task. I must learn of it sometime, and I should rather like to know at once." Odysseus answered, "You strange woman, why do you make me go on talking again? All right, I'll tell you and hide nothing. You will not like it, nor do I like it myself." He told me to visit city after city, carrying an oar until I should find people who do not know the sea or eat salt with their food. "Know nothing," said he, "about ships with crimson cheeks and well-fashioned oars which are like the ship's wing feathers." Then he told me this for a clear sign, and I tell it to you. Whenever someone should meet me on the road and say, I had a winnowing shovel on my shoulder, I should fix my oar at once in the ground, then sacrifice to Lord Poseidon in due form a bull, a ram, and a boar pig. And then on returning home, I was to prepare a solemn sacrifice in turn to all the gods who rule the broad heavens. I am to live myself with my people happy around me until I sink under the comfortable burden of years, and death will just come to me gently from the sea. That is what will happen according to him." Penelope answered with her usual good sense, "Well, if the gods are to give you such a comfortable burden of old age, there's good hope that you will come safely through your other trials." Meanwhile, Eurynome and the old nurse laid the soft bedding under the torchlight. When all was ready, the old nurse went to rest in her own room, and Eurynome attended them, torch in hand, to their chamber, and left them there. With happy hearts they came to the place where their old bed was, and Telemachus, with the drover and the swineherd, ended their dance, and sent the women away, and went to rest. Now all the house was dark, and these two enjoyed at last the blessing of love. Then they had a delightful talk of the past. She described what she had gone through, how she had to look on while that wasteful gang slaughtered all those cattle and sheep and emptied all those butts of wine on her account. Odysseus told what hardships he had endured and what trouble he had brought on others. The story delighted his wife, and she could not close her eyes till she had heard it all. He began with the Ciconian battles, and went on to the Lotus Eaters' country, and what the Cyclops did, and how he avenged those fine fellows whom the cannibal devoured without pity. The visit of Iolaus, how kindly he had received them and helped them on their voyage, but it was not yet his destiny to reach home. The tempest caught him up again, and drove him over the sea in distress. Then how he came to Lystrigonian, to Olympios, and the natives destroyed the ships and their crews, and he told of Circe's tricks and devices, and how he sailed to the moldering house of Hades to consult the soul of Theban Tiresias, how he saw his old comrades and the mother who had borne him and brought him up, how he heard the throbbing notes of the siren song, how he went on to the moving rocks and dread Charybdis and Scylla, whom no man ever escaped unharmed, how his companions slaughtered the sun's cattle, how Zeus, thundering in the heights, struck the ship with a fiery bolt, and his companions were destroyed, every one. How he alone escaped and came to Ogygia, and the nymph Calypso, how she kept him in her cave and wanted to have him for a husband, how she cared for him and promised to make him immortal, never to grow old, but he would never consent. How after great hardships he reached the Phaeacians, and they treated him with right royal kindness, and conveyed him to Ithaca in one of their ships, with a heap of gifts, bronze and gold and fine woven stuffs. This was the end of his tale, for then sleep pounced upon him, sleep that soothes the heavy limbs and the heavy heart. Now came Athena's turn. When she thought Odysseus had slept long enough by his wife's side, she released golden dawn from Oceanos to bring light to mortal men. Odysseus rose from his soft bed and said, "My wife, we have had trials enough already, both of us, you mourning and watching for my return, and I held fast by Zeus and all the gods far from the home I craved. And at last we are both in our own bed, which we have so long desired. Now you must take care of the house and what is in it, and I must replace what has been wasted and destroyed. The people will repay part, and the rest I will take by force until my pens are full again. But first I will pay a visit to the woodlands and the farm, to see my good father who is troubled on my account. I warn you to be careful, although you are wise enough to understand without that. As soon as the sun rises, everyone will hear about the men I have killed in this house. You must keep in your apartments, with your women, see no one, and ask no questions." He put on his body armor, then wakened Telemachus and the two men, and made them do the same. When they were all ready, with their weapons in their hands, they opened the gates, and Odysseus led them out. It was already light, but Athena hid them in darkness and quickly led them out of town. That's it for this week. We'll see you guys next week with the final chapter.